भारत आज जितनी तेजी से ग्रो कर रहा है, इससे हम सभी में, इंडस्ट्री में, हर देशवासी में नई ऊर्जा का संचार हो रहा है.
India's growth story is about to be recalculated.
India's per capita income $2,940. Developed countries threshold $14,000. Here is the number that should make every Indian stop and think. To become a developed nation by 2047, which is exactly what our Prime Minister has promised, India needs to grow its per capita income by more than 5 times in just 21 years. And to do that, we need to sustain 8 to 9% GDP growth every single year for next 2 decades. What is the highest we have ever managed over sustained period? 6.3%, and right now we are growing at 6.5 to 7%. So when PM Modi sat down with his entire Council of Ministers on May 21st, 2026, just after returning from 5-nation foreign tour, and told them that the reform express must move faster, that files cannot get stuck in administrative loops, that there should not be any interference in people's lives in any way. The question every Indian asking is simple. After 12 years in power, are these words finally going to translate into action? Or have we heard about this before? This video is not just about one meeting. It is about India's biggest promise to itself, Viksit Bharat 2047. It developed India by the time we turn 100 years as an independent nation. And whether the reforms being pushed right now in 2026 are actually enough to get us there, we will go through 3 layers. First, the past. What reforms have actually happened since 2014 and what they meant for common Indian. Then the present. What this Council of Ministers meeting signals and what pressure India is facing right now. And finally, the future. The brutal math of Viksit Bharat. What needs to happen and which states and sectors holds the key. Stay with me. This one matters. Cast your mind back to 2014. If you wanted to open a bank account, you need documents most poor Indians simply did not have. If you wanted to send money to your family in the village, you either carried a cash or paid Western Union. If you ran a small business, you dealt with not 1, not 5, but 29 separate labor laws, each with its own compliance requirements, its own inspector, its own potential for harassment. Then came a wave of reform that genuinely changed daily life for hundreds of millions of Indians. Jan Dhan Yojana in 2014 opened 53 crore bank accounts, many for the first time, and connected the rural poor directly to government subsidies. No middleman, no leakages, money landed directly in people's account. Then UPI, launched in 2016, made India the undisrupted global leader in real-time digital payments. Today, India processes more digital transactions than the United States, Europe and China combined. A vegetable seller in Bengaluru or a chai shop owner in Varanasi accepts payments with QR code. That is a genuine measurable change in ease of living. Then came GST in 2017, messy and chaotic at launch, yes, but it is unified 29 different state tax systems into one nation market. Then in 2025, the 56th GST Council announced next generation rate rationalization, cutting taxes on essential goods and giving reliefs to middle class. And just 2 months ago, April 2026, Parliament passed the Jan Vishwas Amendment Bill 2026. This one quite changed 784 legal provision across 79 central acts. It removed the imprisonment as a punishment for 57 minor violations entirely, eliminated fines for 158 more. In plain English, you can no longer be sent to jail for a paper errors in your small business. These are real reforms. They have real impact. But, and this is critical, they have mostly solved the easy problems. The structural, deep, stubborn challenges, those are very much alive now. And that brings us to where we are today. What is really happening in May 2026? On May 21, 2026, PM Modi chaired a full of Councils of Ministers meeting. All cabinet ministers, all ministers of state. 9 ministers made detailed presentation on governance and reform, and the message from the Prime Minister was pointed. He told ministers files should not get stuck, implementation cannot be delayed, no minister should get distracted by unnecessary controversies. And this line is important. Our government has been in power since 2014. It's now 2026. The focus must be on what we can achieve in the future, not what we have done in the past. That is significant admission from a government that has spent a lot of energy celebrating its own achievements. It signals something. Even inside the government, there is a recognition that the next decade has to be different. But this meeting did not happen in a vacuum. It happened against a real difficult backdrop. The West Asia crisis has pushed global crude oil price above $100 per barrel, and here is a problem. 85% of India's crude oil is imported. When oil price rise, transportation cost rise. When transportation cost rise, food price rises. When food price rise, inflation rises. And inflation directly destroys ease of living for every ordinary Indian, especially the poor. PM Modi publicly urged to reduce the fuel use, cut gold purchase and avoid unnecessary foreign travel. That is not the language of government confident in its economic cushion. It is the language of governments managing the pressure. At the same time, 9 ministers, agriculture, forest, labor, road transport, corporate affairs, external affairs, commerce and power were recognized for the fastest disposal of files. That detail matters. It means administrative speed is now being tracked and rewarded. That is a governance change that quietly have enormous impact. So the present momentum is a tug of war. Reform movement is real and building. But the global headwinds, oil, geopolitics, trade tension with the US are pushing back hard. The question is whether India's reform engine is strong enough to power through. Here comes the math of Viksit Bharat 2047. Let us talk about the number that defines everything. Viksit Bharat 2047, a developed India, requires India to reach a GDP of $30 trillion. Today, we are at roughly 3.5 to 4 trillion. That is nearly a 10-fold increase in 21 years. More importantly, it requires our per capita income to go from $2,940 today to $14,000 to $18,000 by 2047. The World Bank's threshold for a high-income country is currently $14,000. To get there, India needs to sustain 8 to 10% annual growth every single year until 2047. For the last decade, we averaged 5.4%. This year, the projection is 6.5 to 6.8%. Good, but not enough. This is not a reason for despair. It is a reason for honesty about what the next wave of reform must actually do. The easy reform, digitization, direct benefit transfer, GST unification, decriminalizing minor offences have largely been done. What remains is harder. Land acquisition reform, reforming the judicial system where 5 crore cases are pending, reforming the agriculture market so farmers actually get fair prices, investing massively in education quality, not just enrollment but outcomes, building genuine manufacturing capacity beyond the assembly lines. India is the 4th largest economy by the total GDP, but we rank 142nd out of 197 countries in per capita income. That gap between the size of our economy and the income of our people is the central challenge of next 2 decades. And critically, this cannot be solved from Delhi alone. Viksit Bharat 2047 lives or dies at the state level. A child in Bihar getting a quality education, a farmer in Vidarbha getting the fair market access, a woman in rural Rajasthan getting the healthcare without traveling 50 kilometers. These are the state subjects and the variation between India's best and worst performing states on ease of living. The states will define whether the Viksit Bharat is real or just a slogan or the large poor populous ones. Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. Together they account for nearly 40% of India's population. If they grow, India grows. If they stagnate, no amount of meeting in Delhi will move the needle. Here is what I genuinely think. The reform direction is right. Jan Dan, UPI, GST, Jan Vishwas, these are not small things. They have changed the texture of daily life for hundreds of millions of people. The government deserves the credit for that. But 12 years in power and 21 years left until 2047 means the honeymoon phase of easy popular reform is over. What comes next is hard stuff: labor, judiciary, land, agriculture, state level governance. And those reform requires political capital, patience that goes far beyond a single Council of Ministers meeting. The West Asia oil crisis is a reminder that India's reform agenda does not happen in controlled environment. Global shocks will be keep coming. The question is whether our institutions, our ministries, our states, our judiciary are reform proof enough to absorb these shocks and keep moving forward. I want to know, what do you think? Do you believe India can actually become a developed nation by 2047, or is the math simply too odd? Tell me in the comments. And if you are from a state that you think is either leading or completely being left behind in this reform story, name it. I read the comments. If this video gave you something to think about, share it. That is how these conversations grow. See you in the next one.